This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham, your host, and I'm so excited. I am here today with Theresa Lambert. Theresa, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? I'm so happy to be here with you. So
Awesome.
fun. Yay!
I'm so excited that you're here too. So today we're doing an Ask the Expert interview with Theresa. So let me guys tell you a little bit more about Theresa. So she's a best-selling author of Achieve with Grace, a guide to elegance and effectiveness in an intense workplaces. She's a business and success coach, speaker, and podcast co-host to Dissecting Success. We've met Blair Kaplan-Venables, who's her co-host on that show already and on this podcast. So they have this amazing podcast called Dissecting Success. So Theresa founded her coaching consulting firm, Theresa Lambert Coaching Consulting, Inc., to coach women entrepreneurs and leaders to create the next level of success with more elegance and to create the impact, income, freedom they desire without struggle. So we're really going to dive into this today. So Theresa's background comes from over 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry. She lives in Whistler, BC, which is an amazing place. I was just there a few days ago, and has recently, her most recent tenure was as a general manager of the Nita Lake Lodge. She brings both the real world and proven applicable tools to support her clients. So Theresa's also been recognized as a leader in Whistler's Profile of Excellence, featured in Hotelier Magazine, Thrive Global, and Authority Magazine, and spoken at women in hospitality leadership events, including Empower Her. So welcome, Theresa. Thanks for joining us.
My God, thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you today about leading with more grace and leaving the hustle and the struggle behind, because yeah, I feel like that's the future. Let's just put that right in the front.
Yeah, I agree too. I feel like this is the new thing. Before it was like this hustle and grind and like you got to prove that you're working so hard. No, now I think we need to prove that we're doing it efficiently, effectively, and without the struggle. And that grace, I think, is such a great, powerful word. So how did you discover this in your business and in your work experience to really want to bring this to something to the world and the rest of the women and entrepreneurs out there that are doing that hustle and grinding stuff?
Yeah, like I feel like I grew up with that, early bird catches the worm mentality, and that if you want to get somewhere in life and in your career, you're going to have to keep your head down and work hard and never give up and just keep grinding until you get to where you want to go, which, it's not such bad advice. I feel like that there is some parts of that I can get behind, but so it brought me up to be a very ambitious, high-achieving woman, and I was gung-ho for my goals, and I'm very well known for the person that you go to when you want to get shit done fast. So that kind of became a bit of my brand, and I was very proud of it for a really long time. I became a GM at 29, so super young, of a luxury boutique hotel that was at the point not in the best state, I would say, to say it in a nice way. And so I took on that role. I had just seen a couple of GMs come and go in my time that I was there. I honestly was like, I don't know, like where this is going. Like I kind of thought, I probably have about 12 months and then I'll probably get the axe and I'm out. Like I figured the likelihood of that was much higher, but I'm always been a person that when opportunities come, it's like, if you throw me a ball, I will catch it and I'm going to run with it. And I don't make it mean so much if it goes wrong. And that's something that now in entrepreneurship, I'm anchoring in more and more. Like, you got to be willing to fail in order to get it right. And so I took on the role, and turns out I was really good at it. But I put everything I had into it. I was always switched on, like literally 24/7, in an industry too that never sleeps, where there's high expectations, quick turnaround. I got lost in the doing. And so about 3 years into that role, we were incredibly successful. The business was going. We've been doubling the workforce, like revenues were increasing like at a rapid pace. That was actually the year too where I first got was part of an interview in Hotelier magazine, which is huge for hotels, like hotel GMs. Like it's huge. Like huge honor, so if you're not familiar with that, that was like so big for me career-wise. But I was really struggling at the point to keep it together. And in hospitality, we're taught that when there is a fire in the kitchen, nobody knows. So I became a master of like waking up, putting on a mask, and just muttering through my day and just be like, no, I'm going to do it. And so the problem is the more you push against exhaustion, the more you push against your own, energy and trying to keep up your own ridiculously high expectations that are really unrealistic expectations of yourself, the more resistance you create, and actually the bigger the struggle gets. So while we're thinking that the more time we put in and the faster we do things and the more things we get done, the faster we're going to get to the other side of that, we're actually doing the opposite, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so I burned out. And part of the thing with burnout, and I didn't know this back then, I didn't even know I was burned out because that was 5 years ago now nearly. Isn't that crazy? Time goes by so fast. Burnout wasn't a term that was really used a lot at all. Like now I hear it all the time, and I'm like, oh, it's so funny because now I'd be like, oh yeah, I must be in burnout. But it's also become a bit of a fashion thing. Oh yeah, I'm just burnt out. And I think that's a really dangerous, route to go down. But very much for me, busy was a badge of honor. I believe that if you're a successful person leading a large, multi-million-dollar organization with a big team, you're just busy. That's just the way it is, right? Like that comes with responsibility and power and success. And so the mindset, that we're in at this level of success was something that made me feel really curious. And at the same time, I was struggling to keep it all together, sleeping, but waking up feeling even more tired than when I went to sleep, or not sleeping at all, like that tired but wired feeling. And the worst thing about burnout for me is brain fog. So if you're listening and you've been feeling tired or you're forgetting things, like this was huge for me. Like I would have conversations with people, and, I still I've let go of a lot of it, but I feel sometimes like, wow, like, was I a good leader? And I believe I know I still was because people tell me, but to some extent I would have conversations and somebody would leave the room an hour later and I couldn't recall a thing that we spoke about. So I was starting to wing things a lot, and I'm not a wing it kind of person. Like I put a lot of effort and time and dedication into my work. It's the same with how I support my clients. So to not remember conversations, to forget things, like that was huge for me. And then the indecisiveness started to come in. And when you lead an organization, or if you're an entrepreneur, building a business, to be indecisive, it's not a good place to be. You got to be able to make decisions. You got to be in the right mindset to make the decisions, and you got to own the decision. And when you don't have either of those three, you're really treading on, like thin ice. And it's easy to start to make costly mistakes that take you way longer to fix. And so after getting to that place, pretty much losing my passion. Like I started to resent my role and my job and blame a lot of people. Again, something else that comes with burnout. And I just was like, how is it that I'm like at this place, right? Like what I thought was my dream career that I always wanted to do. I believed that I was going to be a hotel GM for the rest of my life, maybe work in other places around the globe, right? Like build boutique hotels, or maybe ultimately, you know, expand the hotels that this company had and, you know, create a whole fleet of beautiful boutique hotels. I mean, why not, right? Like that's what I thought. And then I was pretty much there with opportunities everywhere, and I didn't want it. I wasn't happy. I was like, you know, like I was just kind of like robotically going through life. Like you wake up, you like, you know, get yourself ready. You're like, okay, boom, like just put my like blazer on, like put the mask on, off I go through the day, rushing all the time, home, dinner, pass out.
Right.
And it's just not much a life.
Leader, right? Yeah, that's not much of a life, nor is it very much fun. Now, you said something at the beginning where you took the hotel that was doing okay to like, then it was super successful. So what part of your leadership skills do you think that really attributed to that part of the growth in it? Because obviously you led the team to a very successful several years in there. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what you think that really makes it for our listeners that are listening too, that are becoming new leaders and leading something, you know, that maybe don't have leadership skills or haven't led anything before. What are a couple of key things that you can recommend that we really do as leaders to be successful?
100%. I think first up, the experience that you create for your team and for your clients matters a lot, like a lot. From the moment, you know, people come into your world to working with you in any capacity, whether it's a hotel or not, to leaving and then becoming return clients or referral partners or whatever it may be, you know, I think that that is huge. So really take some time to think about what's the experience that you want people to have? How do you want them to feel? And not just them, but how do you want your team to feel when they come in every day? How do you want to show up so you can help them feel that way? So I think that's really where it starts. And that's sort of, people are kind of at the heart. But when we think about people, we really want to think about experiences and the feeling and emotions we want to evoke in people, because you're looking at a large number of people, right? Like we had, at one point we had about 180 employees, right? So how can we get everybody on the same page? So by agreeing that we want everybody to feel a certain way, that we want there to be a certain vibe when you come in and experience, right? Like that is a word that I keep coming back to even now over and over. That is really huge. So this is where I would start. And then the next thing I would really say is look at your own strengths, right? Like I think this is where we often go wrong. And we're also taught that, right? Like we're taught that if we're bad at something to focus on our weaknesses and get better at them. But I 100% disagree with it. If you're really bad at something, stop doing it. Hire somebody to help you do that, right? Like complement your team. This is especially true if you're building a new team, like as a leader of an organization, hire people that are better at you at things that you suck at. Like, let's just call it what it is, right? Because this isn't about being the best and creativest in the room. It's really about your ability to find the people that complement you so that we can all work together. So, but really focus on your strengths. Like, what are your strengths? What's already there? What's already working? And make that better, right? Like, make that better, because there's always room for improvements in your strengths, but it's going to be, again, a much nicer experience for everybody else, including yourself.
Yeah, that really helps you stay one step further away from that burnout too, by focusing on the things that you're good at and come naturally to, usually are easier than the things that you don't know, you're not very good at.
100%. And that brings me to the last thing. And you just mentioned that, you know, I think it's important to have good boundaries and really define or redefine what success is to you. And really start to think about, how do you want this to look like for yourself? Like, what's your vision for yourself as a leader? How do you want to lead? And if I could go back in time and did it all again, that's something that I would have really spent a lot more time in, because I was focused on the people and creating the experience and the feeling and focused on the strengths, and that worked really well. But I had no boundaries and I had no vision on how I actually wanted to lead, other than that I was proving myself, and that was the thing, right? But that's not really a vision. That's just default autopiloting. But so when you really know that, and when you have the boundaries, and when you sort of redefine what success is, you know, not just in your leadership, in your career, but also what would success look like in your life, in your family, in your health, and take that holistic approach, you're like, oh, okay, here's a few things I need to do. And this is what I gotta start doing every day to move myself closer to getting there.
Absolutely. So as the words elegance and grace have come into this conversation, in terms of leadership, what does that exactly look like?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest skills that I find we can have as leaders, and that I would always encourage people to work on, is your emotional intelligence. Right. And what it really boils down to, and that's where that elegance piece comes in as well, I find, and the grace, is that we've got to be able to respond and not react. And that starts from the moment you get up, as you lead, you know, your team, as things come up. Because the thing is, and in hospitality, like, it's pretty intense. Like 100 things can come at you at the same time. You know, like a sprinkler goes off in a room and we're sold out and we're trying to fix that. And somebody else has a problem and emails going off and some team has a conflict, and like booking system goes down. Like literally this could happen like in a 10-minute span of time. Right. So you've got two choices, really. You start reacting to everything, and it's frantic, right? And then you're like in this reactive mode that makes you feel like you're behind, or you learn to respond and to step back and to be like, okay, we've got all of this, understanding that even though that's stressful, and even though you might find it frustrating that those things are happening, right? To be able to understand that you have an emotional response and still be able to make decisions from the part of the brain that has the intellect, the logic. That is something that I think is at the root of this, because when we respond, we show up very differently, and we start to be able to actually make better decisions and solve problems faster than when we react.
Right. It's not so frantic when you respond and take a breath first.
No, it's a lot easier actually, but it's, you know, I think for a lot of people, right, it's like you feel like you have to like act fast. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we've sort of put this like quick response, as quick, as faster as you can handle something, the better. We've put this on this pedestal. But the thing is that by slowing it down, mm-hmm. stepping back, taking a breath, really like giving yourself a minute to like understand, okay, where am I at right mm-hmm. in this moment with all this happening? And then sort of taking yourself out of it for a moment and just looking at everything that's there, even as like if it's a movie that you're watching and you're like a few of it and you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do with all of this? You're actually able to address it faster, even if it takes you 10 minutes before you make a decision, right? Instead of just doing this and being like, yeah, we're going to do that. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, realized you just made it worse.
Yeah, that didn't work, or whoops, that made it worse.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting because I think this is, especially when you and I both live on the West Coast of Canada, and it's very much be proud of your hustle, and like there's a lot of overachieving, even the weekend activities, like, oh, I hiked the Coast Kind and I did this and I did this. And we've come from a culture, especially over here in Western Canada, of like that hustle and grind. And it's a badge of honor, as you said earlier, like, when you're hustling that good. So what are some steps that we need to start to take as, starting with ourselves first, to really be able to integrate more emotional intelligence and slowing down to get more results? And this is a great topic. It's something I'm actually doing in my own business as well, is slowing down to plan further ahead, slowing down to speed up. And it's actually, it works as much as, people are afraid to think of or I know I was afraid to slow down because I would miss out on some things, but actually the slowing down has been really successful. So any suggestions, any tips around this kind of topic of switching from the hustle and grind to the slowing down to move forward?
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned something where we really want to start with, because you just mentioned that you were, telling yourself that like you're going to fall behind if you slow down, right? And that is what I call a story. Some people call it beliefs or paradigms or, like name it what you will. I like calling it a story because I'm a big believer that when we look at life as a story that we're writing, we always get to take a pen and rewrite again, right? So the first step is to really start looking at everything that you're doing and starting to see, where am I telling myself that, I have to do more in order to get ahead, or if I slow down, I fall behind, or busy means I'm worthy, right? Like there's themes that you will start to see coming up in your life. And so the first step really is start to notice, what are you telling yourself? Right? What's the thoughts that come up? What are the things you say when somebody asks you how you're doing? Like, start paying attention, because I remember when people used to ask me how I'm doing, I was like, yeah, I'm great. I'm just super busy. Like, I probably would say that like 50 to 100 times a day. Yeah, I'm great, just busy. I'm great, just busy. Because when you're saying, like, anything that you say, anything that you're thinking actually wires in your brain. So subconsciously, you're going to make decisions that are going to confirm that experience that you're telling yourself is true. Okay, this is how messed up this is, but this is how our brain works. I do a lot of mindset stuff, even in my business coaching, because it's so important. But we've got to get clear on what are the stories that we tell ourselves, and then what's our vision, where we're heading. And same thing, you said, we slow down to plan ahead. And it's really important to know where we're going, because once we know that, you can actually take action with intention. And intention is something that I'm huge on. I believe that we can do less and accomplish far more. And there is, things like the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's really amazing. But ultimately, what it says is that 20% of what we do yields 80% of results, which also means that 80% of what we do only yields 20% of results. So as far as I'm concerned, as an ambitious, high-achieving woman and entrepreneur, that means 80% of my time I'm wasting. So how can I make sure that I get clear on the 20% that yields 80% of the results and focus on the 20%, not on the 80%, right? And that's how we're actually able to take action and do things in our business, in our careers as leaders, that really move us forward, instead of hustling mindlessly and doing everything but getting nowhere, which is what you see a lot, and a very easy trap to fall into, especially when you tell yourself that the more you do, the more you get. Mm-hmm. So you see how this works together. And then the last step that I would sort of say is check in with your energy. And I think our energy is such a brilliant guide, right? Like, what lifts you up? What do you do in your business that lifts you up? What do you do in your career if you're leading teams that lifts you up? What do you do at home and with your family and your relationships that really lifts you up, that gives you energy? And focus on doing more, again, of the things that give you energy, and start to notice the stuff that really drains your energy. Where are you wasting hours and hours doing something that you really don't like doing? I'm going to be the first one to admit, accounting and bookkeeping is one of those things for me. So the first thing I did, like literally, I was clear from the beginning in my business, I'm going to be having a contractor to do my accounting for me, to do my taxes for me, to make sure that everything is in order, to go through it every single month. and I will review it. Like I reviewed massive balance sheets and financials for the hotel, and I don't have a problem reviewing it, but I don't want to do it. So right. Because it drains my energy. Yeah. And so these are the 3 things. So really get clear on the stories and set a vision. Take really intentional action to move you towards where you want to go, and have your energy check-ins. Like always bring it back to what brings me energy, what takes it away, and then focus on what gives you energy, and just start to notice how you're going to work less and how you're going to yield more results and faster than when you were going 180. And that to me is like the most incredible thing that I've ever experienced. And I always laugh because I say, like, the doing isn't my problem. The being is where the work is for me. And it's ongoing because I love to be busy. I love to do stuff. But I catch myself. And then I'm like, okay, do I really need to do this right now? Or do I want to just play golf or, go for a walk and rejuvenate? Because when we show up with our energy, when we show up really feeling amazing and feeling good, the confidence that you bring to your role, the ability you have to make decisions, your leadership, the way other people respond to you, right? The leadership presence, like people always talk about executive presence and being memorable and inspirational. How do you be that? It's when you are actually fully owning who you are and you're like energized and people feel it, right? Like people feel it instantly. Like you can't bullshit your way to leadership presence and energy and actually, holding larger capacity of what you can hold as a business owner, leader, entrepreneur, even at home.
Yeah, so, if you've shown up disheveled and stressed out and last second and like, that's a good clue, right? That's a good indicator. You need to slow it down, take some time. And so, Theresa, this has been so fascinating. I love having this conversation because it's so relevant and it's so important right now, especially after this year that the whole world's had. I think it's forced everyone to slow down just a little bit, but I see how we're ramping up and getting into that. It's back to normal hustle and grind again, which we want to pull back and go through some of those steps that you have suggested for us. So you have something called the living room. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the living room is super fun. This is actually a project that I've been working on for probably 7 months and something I always wanted to offer. So throughout the year, most months I offer free masterclasses or workshops that you can come to on anything from things around emotional intelligence, goal setting, achieving with grace, to coming up things around selling with ease and running masterclasses and launching your programs. And so it previously to 2 weeks ago, you were only able to get replays of these free masterclasses if you purchased one of my programs that I ran. But now I actually have a space where you can come in, which is called the living room. And I was really inspired by a living room being a place where we gather and we can be inspired with things that we do, whether we're reading books. And so inside the living room is a collection of right now 5 transformational workshops and masterclasses that you can dive in right away. I continuously add things, including links to podcasts that I've been on, that I've shared some wisdom in. And I will also have some really fun guests coming in soon where you can get even more content and inspiration to build your business, build your career with ease and grace and elegance. And so, yeah, it's a free space. I'm sure you'll be posting the link. So come join it, check it out, dive into what's in there. And if you're part of it, you also have access to really cool exclusive offers that I don't have anywhere publicly announced. So that's another little bonus. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. And so where you guys can find out more information about that, obviously we put the link in the show notes, but it's also at the Theresa Lambert, TheresaLambertCoaching.com /the living room. So go check it out on her website. seems like such a cool place and such a great idea. We can go and chill out and get some really great master classes and see some really great things that Theresa's put together for you there. So Theresa, I want to thank you so much for being here today. You are such an inspiration, and we want to start leading our lives with more emotional intelligence, more grace. We want to achieve more with less stress. And I love your I love what you're about, and I love that this achieving with grace is such a forward moving goal, or it's a pathway that we can really follow that's going to change our lives and change our success. So thank you for all that you do. And that effectiveness and elegance is so important, especially you're in a crazy workspace. So Theresa, you're amazing, and I just want to thank you for coming on here today. And our audience, make sure you reach out to Theresa. We'll put links all to her website and all her stuff, but the main place you can go and check her out is theresalambertcoaching.com. Anywhere else, and also don't forget to check out her podcast with Blair, the Dissecting Success, which is all over all the major platforms you can do. Any last words, Theresa, before we let you go?
Thank you so much for being here. No, I'm just so excited. Thank you for helping me spread that message around achieving with more grace and elegance. A lot of people told me I'm crazy when I went into this, thinking that who wants to lead with elegance and grace, and that nobody is going to resonate with that message. And I wasn't listening, of course, because I don't tend to listen to other people unless I really want to. And turns out it is the thing that we could really use more of, and more leaders that bring grace and elegance back into the workplaces, into their businesses. And, let's build empires with ease and create a different world where burnout is a blast from the past.
Love it. Awesome. Amplify You family. Did you hear that? Burnout is a blast from the past. I love that. We're going to end with that note. Theresa, thank you so much for being with us. Amplify You family. Go check out Dissecting Success with Theresa and Blair on iTunes and all your major platforms out there. Until next time, stay out there. Your uniqueness is your genius. Amplifying it to the world is ours. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Theresa.